When first starting cycles for women, what are the initial doses as far as anabolics to be safest about usage and side effects? In terms of safety, the lowest dose possible. That is where you want to start. And if you've never used anabolics at all, I wouldn't even look at a cycle of something like Anavar, Primo, Mastron. I would look at TRT because ultimately you put these anabolics in place for a very short, brief period of time. You are going to cause suppressive effects on your natural test levels. If your test is already suppressed and you put these anabolics in place, you are slowly grinding your test down more and more over time. This is also something that is going to go down if you are constantly in and out of a contest prep. So it might be something that ultimately you make a decision around whether or not it makes sense to have more stable test levels and whether that be supported through something like TRT, DHEA, and boron. But if you haven't ever put anabolics in place, you want to start first on the hormonal side of things before looking at just a brief cycle. Understand that just because you increase the dose doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to experience double the positive and wanted benefits from the drug. So in the case of Anavar, I've used 2.5, I've used 5, and it certainly offered the solution that I was looking for. However, when I used 5, I didn't feel double the amount of wanted effects, yet the dose is higher. So that does come with an increased risk. Dosing isn't the only aspect of this that you need to consider. If you look at someone who is taking, let's say 5, 7.5, or even 10, if they're taking that for a very brief period, you could actually find that it comes out to roughly the equivalent of taking 2.5 for several months. And this is often the problem I see with my demographic, specifically with bikini athletes, is that there's the impression that I can take this anabolic for an extended period of time just simply because I'm taking a low enough dose. For Anavar, 2.5, start there, get the most that you can out of it. If you want to escalate to 5 and see if there is an increased result, okay. But once you get to that point, I really have to ask, why are we pushing up to 7.5, 10, 15? For a bikini athlete, how much muscle do you need? And if you need muscle and you're using Anavar during a contest prep, I begin to strongly question whether you understand the drug mechanistically. Now, when we look at injectables, again, the same principles apply. Personally, I think that if it's your first exposure to an anabolic, you can get really good results out of 15 milligrams a week. And it's like, am I really even going to benefit? I've seen athletes put on a good amount of muscle in the off season when they're in a setting that they can actually grow, when they're checking all their boxes, when they're leveraging all of their non-androgenic pathways, as much as it might be easy to rationalize starting at a higher dose. And if you're someone who just simply wants to take a higher dose, just know that taking a higher dose does come with accepting a higher risk.